So first of all, I would like to thank everybody for your kindness to me and to having allowed me, especially given the importance of this meeting, to return home. I just wanted to tell you that when I got home, first of all, I didn't realize this, but my mother kind of lifted up her arm. She was in a rather funny position, but she kind of lifted it up. And only thinking about it afterwards, I realized she knew who I was and she wanted to give me a hug. And that was the most she could do because she can't grasp hands or anything like that at the moment. So she did recognize me. And I have to say, she's been a lot calmer since I got back. So I think it's made a big difference to her. Um, and I thank you very most sincerely for letting me do this. So, okay, so we're going to have now this session, as the Cardinal kindly said, we reduce these nice little, I hope they're nice, I haven't actually seen them, but I saw the model of them, the little medals for the 30th anniversary of the past, because it's quite an important milestone, I think, and looking at the history is important for the future. So you can see here on this opening slide um, a picture of the first plenary. You've got the president at that time, Edmund Malinvaud, standing in the middle. On his left or on our right, looking at the picture, you can see Margaret Archer, who became the president, third president after Mary Ann Glendon. And you can also see a little bit to the left of Malinvaud on the second row, a rather youthful looking Roland Minerath, because of course he was a member of the Academy from the beginning. And that's one of the reasons why I asked him if he would comment a little bit on this presentation after I speak. So first of all, there's this image here. You won't be able to get any detail from it, but it's showing you the academicians when they entered and when they exited. Most academicians are shown in green. The ones who have a red part of their line, these are the ones who are the presidents. So we start off with Edmund Malinvaud, the first 10 years. Then it moves up to Mary Ann Glendon, then down a little bit to Margaret Archer, and then below to Stefano Zamagni, who's the first president who wasn't one of the original members in 1994, even though he was very involved, of course, as we know, in the setting up of the Academy. And then you've got little me at the end. So if we look at this frame, we've actually got 80 people who've been members of the Academy since it started. And you can see it's split into basically three sections. The first section is what we might call the heroic phase, where you've got the original founders. And as you can see, many of them last a long time. As you know, in the statutes, we are each appointed for 10 years. And as time goes on, the number of people who have a renewal of that 10 years goes down. But at the beginning, many people were renewed. And of course, we still have Monsignor Minerath with us. You can see also that the first group that comes in beginning 1997, the first person on that list, you can't see his name, but I can tell you, is Pier Paolo. He's the other person I asked to comment on these statistics. And so you can see these people last for a long time. We've also got Rocco Buttiglione still with us. And other people who left just not that long ago, such as Paulo Zulu, who was from South Africa. He was here till 2022 from the very beginning of the Academy. So this first phase, they last a long time. Then we've got a middle phase where many of them are still here, but new people are coming in. And now we're in the third phase where most of those people are leaving, mostly for age reasons. And new people are coming in. So we'll see this reflected in the rest of the data. So that's the reason for showing you this as the first slide. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I have to. Oh, yes, okay. So gender representation, you can see that at the beginning it was fairly low. And because we have this phenomenon that we talked about, fairly low, I mean the number of women, of course, because we have a fairly stable population until the last 10 years or so, it doesn't change very much. Even though the two women presidents we have perhaps could have done more, to bring more women in. You can see that 2004, the overall number has gone up. We're practically at 40 by that time, which is the maximum number that we can have. But the proportion of women hasn't changed very much. Where we really see it starting to change is over the last 5 years, between 2019 and 2024. And of course, we have to thank the great Stefano Zamani for that. He's really been pushing to get more women into the academy. So I think this is a trend that we can hope will continue in the future. But the previous trend is mostly to do with this group staying and forming and creating the original ideas that form the basis of the academy. We can also see this represented in the average age. The first 10 years or so, the average age goes up with the fact that the people who are in the academy are aging. And then we have a sort of middle period. It goes up a little bit more at the beginning of the next 10-year period, but not the same amount as it would do with all the people who are aging, because there are new people coming in. And then in the last phase, it's coming down again as the older people are leaving and younger people are coming in. So it actually comes back to about the same average age at the end of this 30-year period. And I expect we've probably reached a kind of steady state as regards the average age of the academicians. Here we have perhaps the first interesting slide showing the provenance, the origin of the academicians. I suppose it's no surprise, given the historical importance of Catholicism in Europe, the fact that a lot of the higher education institutions of the Catholic Church are in Europe. And of course, it's near to Rome, so it means you have Europeans, it doesn't cost so much to bring them to Rome for the meetings. So we have over half the number of the academicians coming. This is the total number, so this is over the full 80 that we've had over the 30 years. I think the only other comment I'd like to make about these numbers is just how small the number is from Asia, Africa, and Oceania. You can see that altogether they are less than the number from the Americas, and of course much, much less than the number from Europe. The number from Europe is also twice as much as the number from the Americas. And when we think about where the population of the world is today, including where the population of the Catholic Church is today, if you look at the recent Pew Research Trust data, we've got 16% of Catholics worldwide in sub-Saharan Africa and 12% in Asia Pacific. We're not really seeing that reflected here. And my guess about this is that it's because the academic networks are not integrated enough across these different parts of the world. And that means that there hasn't been enough contact between the Europeans, especially, but also people in the Americas and academics in this other part of the world. So we need to sort of find a way to move forward on that front, I think. You can see that the looking at, again, in 5-year blocks, the most recent breakdown in terms of where academicians come from, it's a little bit better. We have 48% is European at the moment, and 30% is from the Americas. But we still have a doggedly low number from the other three parts of the world, Asia, Africa, and Oceania. Okay, if we look at the list of disciplines, this is the list slightly modified last week by me, also using the listing of the Academy of Sciences. This list was put together by Stefano Zamani, but so it's a bit modified by me. I should ask the council for approval, but I don't think they have a lot of problems. The main change to it is I put in a separate category for philosophy, which also the Academy of Sciences has, and the other discipline area also has some disciplines it didn't have before, especially theological anthropology and theology. So using this list of disciplines, we can look at, again, the total. So over the 80 people who've belonged to the Academy over the last 30 years, we can see that we have a distribution across the disciplines, which actually reflects quite well what is said in the statutes of the Academy. Our first goal is to promote progress in the social sciences, and it says especially economics, sociology, law, and political science. So we practically have that representation in that order in this sharing of the disciplines. Although we have overall more economists than anybody else, at the moment, we look again at the 5-year analysis, at the moment we have more sociologists than economists, but overall we've had more economists across the whole period of the academy. I would like to point out that this is a little bit misleading, I think, these last two slides, because of course our academicians are quite diverse. They have more than one principal discipline. We heard Chancellor Marcello yesterday talking about education, and of course he's very expert in this area, but he's actually considered as an anthropologist in terms of his principal disciplines. Similarly, Gustavo Belize and Christophe Engel, they are down on the list as lawyers, but of course we know that they're talking about a lot of other things as well. So we need to keep that in mind. In that sense, it's only a rather limited view of our academicians, these last two slides. Okay, so that's the last part of the data on the academicians. Now we're going to move to the topics area. And this is presented in terms of the presidency. So we'll look at how the topics move with the different presidencies, also because it's a convenient period of time. It's usually 5 or 10 years. So the first president, Edmund Malherbe, is in place for 10 years, and he hands over to Mary Ann Glendon in 2004. So you can see this is the kind of heroic first phase of the academy. The way this was working, as you can see, you've got topics or projects going horizontally across with the years in which they produced an event. And then below, you have the years again with the names of the events. So you can see the specific topics. So this heroic phase was when the academy is developing its identity. And it was agreed that they would focus, the academicians would focus on 3 topics. And these are the projects 1 to 3 in this table you can see here. Now, the first 2, that is work in human societies and the problems of unemployment and of work culture, and democracy, its socioeconomic conditions, and the transformation of democracy, these 2 are really the key ones that led to the founding of modern social teaching. You know, Rerum Novarum is reacting to industrialization, the work question, and also to modernity, of which the production of democracy is one of the most important aspects. The third topic, intergenerational solidarity, the welfare state and the family, is I think almost prophetic. There were already problems with welfare state at that time, but these problems have become much more severe now. And so the fact that the academy was working on that is, I think, interesting. You had a combination there of sort of carrying on the tradition from the past, but also looking to new and innovative topics. It's interesting that whereas the first 2 projects, which are more established domains in the tradition of Catholic social teaching, they produced their first events after only 2 years. So both of them produced an event in 1996. Whereas the Intergenerational Solidarity project takes 8 years to produce its first event. So you can see it's more exploratory, it's more innovative, this one. All these projects produce 3 events. The third one from Intergenerational Solidarity is in the next presidency. It's interesting that there's no project focused on development. And I wonder if that's partly because of the lack of academicians from Asia, Africa, and Oceania. Even though the Academy is set up after Sollicitudo Rei Socialis, which, by commemorating Populorum Progressio, starts to put it on a similar kind of level to Rerum Novarum and makes development another foundational issue for Catholic social teaching alongside work. But we don't see that represented in these projects. Now, we can see that apart from the first plenary, when there was the need to set things up, and you can see that that was on human equality and social inequalities, all the plenaries in this period come out of these projects. Plenaries were annual at that stage. And apart from 2 years which are missed, one of which you can see here, 1995, and then 2013, they were every year until 2015, when it was agreed to start following the same model as the Academy of Sciences and have a plenary every 2 years. Now, globalization is another project which starts later, 4 years later, 1998, and it's more fruitful in terms of the number of meetings it produces, twice as many as the previous projects. We'll see more of them in the next slide. And it too takes 2 years to produce its first meeting. There's another project which people want to set up, the academicians want to set up, called the Vision of the Human Person in the Social Sciences in 2003. We'll see a bit more about that in the next slide. So I would say in this phase of its history, you can see the academicians are getting to know each other and are trying to work out how to work together in an interdisciplinary way and to interact with the church's social teaching. So if we look then at the next presidency, this is Mary Ann Glendon, we don't have the Democracy Project here anymore because the Democracy Project didn't produce any more events. You can see, going back to the previous slide, both of those projects, Work and Democracy, produce a number of events up to 2000. Now I left the Work one in because actually there's another Work event in the next slide. I could have perhaps taken it out. But anyway, so Intergenerational Solidarity is still producing events, the third and final one in 2006 in this period. Globalization still has 2 more events. It's 9 altogether. Oh, sorry, it lasts a bit longer. Yes, I wanted to say that the first 2 projects, they last basically 6 years, 1994 to 2000, whereas the globalization one, which starts in 98, goes up until 2007. So it's lasting a bit longer, that one. Now, the CST Anniversaries one is not a project which was set up by the academicians. This is me imposing on what I could see to sort of create something simple for this graph. What happens is that the academicians agree in 2009 to prepare events to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Parchim Terrace in 2013. They say 3 events, I could only find 2. And then later on, we see other celebratory events that are organized to celebrate some important document in the history of Catholic social teaching. So I decided it would be useful to put that as a separate event. The Vision of the Human Person in Social Sciences produced its first event here, but this turns out to be the only event. And this project kind of disappears somehow, which I think is quite amazing, really, given the topic. But I haven't been able to work out yet why that happens. And there may not be any kind of more serious explanation than just there wasn't money or something like that. So this one only has 1 event. Okay, the next big project that starts is Human Trafficking and Modern Slavery. No surprise, it's 2013. This is when Pope Francis becomes Pope, and this will produce a lot of events. 9 between the end of this presidency, Mary Ann Glendon's presidency, and the beginning of the Archer presidency. We also get more events that are just individual. You can see the last part of the project section, it says various other subjects listed below. This is where I couldn't categorize an event in any of the project areas, so I just set up a separate line for that. And you can see that there are more events of this kind, especially in the middle period. And it's almost as if the Academy is sort of looking for some other topic to work on. This is also the period of the financial crisis. And you can see Plenary 16, 2010 is focused on that topic. So that's also one of the reasons why we have an individual event. This is also the period where we get the first joint Pontifical Academy of Sciences and Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences meeting. You can see it's called Sustainable Humanity, Sustainable Nature. It's in 2014. It's a plenary for us. It's a workshop for the Academy of Sciences. And I think, though other people can probably correct me on this, that this was organized to help Pope Francis prepare for Laudato Si. Okay, these joint meetings with the PAS with the sciences will continue every 2 or 3 years from now on. And in fact, we have 2 this year. So I see that this is a line of work that will continue and may continue to intensify as well in the future. So now we go into the Margaret Archer presidency. You can see there's more information to get on the slide here. So more things are starting to happen. We can see a continuation of projects 1, 6, 7, and 8. So projects are dropping out and new ones are coming in. And we also have the start of 3 new projects. And this is the first time we have projects coordinated with an outside body, which in this case is a Sustainable Development Solutions Network. So Ethics in Action is the first one that runs for 3 years and produces 13 meetings. And then Science Ethics for Happiness and Wellbeing, which just starts in this period and then carries on into the Zamani presidency. We also get the Youth Symposium, which starts, which again is another collaboration with the youth part of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. You can also see more and more individual events coming up to deal with specific topics. Interestingly, the 2 events with the sciences are one on biological extinction and the other one on robotics, AI, and humanity. Pretty still relevant topics to us now. So in this period, we can see that we are over 30 meetings in 5 years. Okay, so we're now having minimum 5 meetings in a year, maximum 11 meetings in a year. And this is a rate of activity that's maintained and slightly increased in the Zamani period. So this is the last period that we look at. We have a continuation of some projects, 6, 8, 10, and 11, carrying on from the previous presidency. And while a new project is set up also with the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, but by now, Jeffrey Sachs, who wasn't a member at the time, is now a member of the Academy. So he's also representing the Academy. So this new project is Fraternal Economy of Integral and Sustainable Development, building on Fratelli Tutti, of course. So we've had overall, you can see here, 12 of these kind of projects set up over the 30-year period. This is the first period in the Zamani presidency where there are at least 2 events in the other category every year. So the other category becomes very active. There's lots of more limited corporations, for instance, with other groups. Stefano Zamani is here, of course, so he can add anything he thinks is helpful regarding the period of his presidency. So I want to come to a conclusion now and just say we have time for discussion after I'll hand over next to Roland Minerath and then to Pier Paolo Donati, just to ask them to make some comments as people who've been part of this process for much of the time. I just wanted to leave you with a few questions. What should we do about the proportion of academicians from Asia, Africa, and Oceania? To me, this is something about improving our contacts with networks, but you may have other things you want to say about that. Do you see any other issues emerging from the history of the projects, the topics addressed? That's interesting. And then if we have some time, I have a couple of thoughts for the future, which I can add if there's time, or else we can also talk about those in the closed session for the academicians at the end. So I would now hand back to the Cardinal and to also over to Archbishop Minerath to carry on these comments. Thank you very much.